All right, people, what's up? Today is Tuesday morning, and I'm going to do another NFL video. Seems like you guys love when I make football videos about professional sports. So today's episode is episode 10, and yes, I will be extending the series. So instead of 13 videos, you'll probably get a total of 14 videos when it's all said and done. So once I get up to episode 14, or episode 15 to finish off the series, that will conclude our NFL series. So consider yourselves lucky that the series has been extended. Now I have 43 subscribers. I want to take the time to say thank you to my 43 subscribers, because if it wasn't for you, this would not be possible. I don't want to sound like an arrogant asshole, but without you people, this would not be possible. So today I'm going to give you another matchup that you didn't see coming. This one was very hard to decide, but this one is for the two most controversial football players in the NFL, past and present. It's going to be Deion Sanders, aka Deion Primetime Sanders, versus Terrell Owens. Yes, you heard me. It's Deion Sanders versus Terrell Owens. So let's get into the video, shall we? Now, Deion Sanders played at two different positions. I know you find this hard to believe that when he first got drafted into the NFL in 1988 for the 1989 and 1990 NFL season, he was a cornerback, not a quarterback, a cornerback. That means you run to the right corner, you run to the left corner, same position that Richard Sherman had. And basically he was very good. He was very good at his professional sports. When he was in junior high, high school, at the junior college level, and at college level, throughout his whole entire life, Deion Sanders played a total of 4 different sports: basketball, football, baseball, and track. And that's how come he always stayed in the best athletic shape. Deion Sanders was known for 2 things: playing sports and party. And of course, when he got drafted to the Atlanta Falcons, he took that football team to a place where it hadn't gone before. They won football games. They made the playoffs every single year that he got drafted. But Deion had one problem. He couldn't kick his habit when it came to, the alcohol, the drugs, the girls, especially the girls. I mean, I know what it feels like that when you're on the prime of your NFL career and you see all these fine ass women, you just can't help yourself. So he ended up, messing around with 1 or 2 or 3 women. And this was a distraction to the Falcons. The Falcons felt like they would never, ever get success if it weren't for him. At this time, I think they had another football player who also couldn't get his act together. If I'm not mistaken, it could possibly be Brett Favre, because Brett Favre was a part of this football team. And the 2 players that they would complain about the absolute most was these 2. Brett Favre couldn't leave the alcohol alone, and he couldn't leave the women alone. And he was coming late to practice. That's why they traded Brett Favre from the Atlanta Falcons to the Green Bay Packers. And it weren't until later in that development that we saw the Brett Favre that we saw in Green Bay. Same thing with Deion Primetime Sanders. If you actually think about it, the same thing happened to him too. After 5 seasons of him being with the Atlanta Falcons, they just had enough of his act. I mean, coming late, the guy tried to commit suicide not once. He actually tried to commit suicide twice. The first time he tried to commit suicide, it was because he was going through a nasty divorce, a bad breakup. The woman wanted to take his kids from him because he wouldn't leave the alcohol and the drugs and the partying alone. So that was the first time he tried to commit suicide. The second time he tried to commit suicide, he was depressed. He couldn't win football games. They were losing football games. They found themselves not making the playoffs. And after 5 or 6 seasons of being with this team, the Atlanta Falcons, they couldn't take it no more. So they sent him off to San Francisco so San Francisco 49ers can have the same exact problem. The only difference is by this time period, he decided to change his life around, go to rehab, come out, and he started playing baseball. Who go figure, if you're in the city of Atlanta, he decided to go play for the Atlanta Braves, even though he wasn't with the Atlanta Falcons at this point. And while playing for the San Francisco 49ers, this guy would have 4 houses in 4 different cities. And of course, he wanted to be a rap superstar. Oh yeah, he loved him some rap music, so he made him some rap albums. It's Deion prime time, baby. Yeah, baby, it's Deion, baby. Call me, baby. Y'all remember that from the 1990s. Some of y'all new millennials is like, Deion made a rap album? What? Yeah, he made like at least 4 rap albums. I mean, they weren't really, they weren't on the same level as Ice Cube or any of those guys, but he made 4 rap albums during this time period. And at this time period, they had a magazine called The Biggest Ego in the NFL. And he did take some serious offense to it. Magic Johnson called himself Showtime, so he called himself Prime Time. Because it was prime time to him. And he said that playing football is his passion and his dream, but playing baseball is his mistress. And while playing for the Atlanta Braves, they made it to the World Series. The same year, he goes to a Super Bowl and a World Series in the same year. Nowhere in the history of sports you have a professional athlete that plays professional football and baseball at the same exact time in the same year and go to 2 championships and 2 different sports. Now, they give Bo Jackson all the credit for playing 2 sports, but they always choose Bo Jackson over Deion Sanders. But to me, that's unfair because Deion won a Super Bowl and then went to a World Series the same year. Now, he lost the World Series while playing baseball, and then when it was time for the football season, he won 2 championships. He won with the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, after 2 or 3 seasons, or should I say 2 seasons with the 49ers, he could not get along with Jerry Rice. It was a competition to him. And finally, after Jerry Rice complained several or 8 times to the organization, a decision was made. You either get rid of Jerry Rice or you get rid of Deion Sanders. And they chose the less of 2 evils. They kept Jerry Rice, since he was their wide receiver. He was the guy that was helping them win football games. And after Deion Sanders won his first Super Bowl championship ring with the 49ers, he found himself playing on his 3rd football team. How about them Dallas Cowboys? Stop hating on those Cowboys. Once he got sent to the Dallas Cowboys, he was now with Troy Aikman. He was with Michael Irvin. And Deion once again won another Super Bowl. But this time it was revenge. This time it was payback on the San Francisco 49ers. And he would get his revenge on Jerry Rice. He would win his 2nd championship, and he would win 2 championships 2 years in a row. And he would play with the Dallas Cowboys for about 3 to 4 seasons. And then tragedy would befall him. Another nasty breakup, another nasty divorce. He takes himself back into the rehab because he couldn't leave the girls and the alcohol and the drugs alone. And the Dallas Cowboys got completely frustrated with him. And they sent him off to another football team. And by that time period, he was towards the tail end of his NFL career. This was not the same Deion Sanders anymore. This Deion, even though he could run super fast, he just wasn't that Deion that we saw with the Atlanta Falcons. He wasn't the same Deion Sanders that he went when he was with the 49ers. This weren't the same Deion when he was with the Dallas Cowboys. By the time he started playing for teams like Baltimore Ravens, he had been in the NFL for about 13, 14 seasons, and he just wasn't the same player. Remember that commercial? I'm Deion, but Deion can't do everything. Remember that commercial? Well, at that point, he wasn't really a controversial football player anymore, but at that point, he was now playing the wide receiver position. They didn't know he could play wide receiver. For years and years, Deion said, I could play 2 or 3 positions. They said, no, we just want you to play the corner. And he went from playing corner to playing wide receiver later in his NFL career. And the reason why I made this video is because I can't make the video of Jerry Rice versus Deion, because that video's been made 10 times over, and we already know who's better between those two players. People will always choose Jerry Rice over Deion Sanders, so why make that video when I can make this video? And just seeing how his career turned out, he won 2 championships in the NFL. He did go to a World Series in baseball. And the guy is inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame as well as the Baseball Hall of Fame, where he soon will be. And he's had a promised career. And he's managed to give back to his community. And people to this day still remember him as being a colorful but also controversial football player. He's the only guy to have 4 rap albums, play 2 different sports, win 2 Super Bowls, and then call himself Primetime, Deion Primetime Sanders. Basically, he dubbed himself as the Magic Johnson of professional football and baseball, basically. And he's been in movies, television shows, he's wrote 4 books, and like I said, he admitted in those books, he tried to commit suicide twice. So basically, we're talking about his achievements and his accomplishments on and off the football field and him being a controversial figure. Now let's move on to Terrell Owens, the next guy who also heavily compared himself to Jerry Rice. He got drafted in the 1990s to the San Francisco 49ers. It's funny, isn't it, that the 49ers get some of the best football players that money could ever buy, right? At one point, you had Joe Montana, you had Steve Young, you get Jerry Rice, you get Deion Sanders at one point, and then you get Terrell Owens. Ain't that funny? The 49ers have some of the best damn players that money could buy. God damn. I ain't never seen no organization other than the Los Angeles Lakers and New York Knicks and basketball do exactly just that. Have the most talent. That and the Boston Celtics. Anyway, when he gets there, he also is a controversial figure. He plays 5 years with the San Francisco 49ers. And at that point in time in history, when he gets there, we see they get rid of Jerry Rice, and they send him on to the Oakland Raiders. And Terrell Owens comes in, but it's too late for him to learn from the veteran. By this time period, he plays, he shows that he's good, and like Deion, he himself is a controversial player. He loves his stats, he wins the most football games, he plays the most football games, but the San Francisco 49ers have the same problem that they had with Deion Sanders. He is a head case. He won't listen. He won't listen to the coaches and the staff. It's that old saying, hard worker, very dedicated, very passionate, very arrogant, very stubborn, and just don't want to listen. So they trade him off to the Philadelphia Eagles. And there's where he teams up with Dynamic McNabb and all the other guys. And they play for about 5 seasons there too. They make it to the Super Bowl. And this weren't the first time that Terrell Owens made it to a Super Bowl. This was like his second try of trying to get into a Super Bowl. And of course, they lose to, who, the New England Patriots, of course. Last minute fumble, last minute, he was injured for most of the NFL season. And he was blamed for that game. Just so you know, to this day, people will always blame Terrell Owens for them losing that Super Bowl. Him doing that television commercial with that actress Cougar that was like 41, 42 years old when they were doing season 2 or season 3 of Desperate Housewives, and they were trying to get him to guest star on the television show as a love interest, and they ended up canceling the commercial and canceling the idea of him being on TV. And then it came out that he likes white women, that he actually loves white women, and people had a problem with Terrell Owens being too much of himself off the football field and not focusing on the football field. And like Terrell Owens, he had the same problem. He just when it comes to these women, he forgets about football, he forgets about practice, and he just falls in love with these women. And he went through a nasty divorce, a nasty breakup, and he himself found himself in bad circumstances. After that, he found himself traded again to another football team. And by the time we get to him playing with the Washington Redskins, he is towards the end of his NFL career. He is pretty much no longer the same Terrell Owens that we're used to seeing. I mean, he's been hurt 5 times. You know, he's all of a sudden traded to the Bengals, where he plays on the same football team with Chad Johnson. And for a moment, it resurrects Terrell Owens' football career. Just like when they sent Deion Sanders to the Baltimore Ravens, and he played with them for the last 2 to 3 seasons before he retired officially. Same thing with Terrell Owens. It resurrected his football career. And Chad Johnson got a little jealous, a little upset. Then they made a television show together, which weren't really a good idea because all the attention Terrell got and poor Chad just got ignored through that program. Terrell started his own television show. People watched it for 2 or 3 years. The TV network didn't want to pick up the contract no more. And we all know what happened to Terrell Owens. He ended up on Dr. Phil for an hour segment about him and his kids with his multiple wives. And you could see how the NFL had enough of him and basically shafted him, traded him to another team, made him play with the Seattle Seahawks, and then said, all right, we're going to cut you. Bye-bye. See you later. We don't want you in the NFL no more because you're a basket case. And he was dubbed as a controversial football player. You go to the Super Bowl twice and you lose twice. Why? Deion Sanders had the privilege to go to 3 Super Bowls. He wins 2 out of 3 tries. And Terrell Owens was a wide receiver. But Terrell Owens also felt, I could play at the quarterback position too. And during the offseason, what did Terrell Owens do? He started playing professional basketball with the Sacramento Kings. If you remember that, he also, all throughout junior high, high school, junior college, and college level, he too could play 4 different sports: basketball, football, baseball, and track. And when he wasn't playing professional football, Terrell Owens would be seen playing basketball with professional basketball teams in the NBA. And this is why I made the video, because there's a lot of comparisons, there's a lot of similarities, and both these guys were dubbed as controversial football players. Like, if you look at Terrell Owens and the way he acts, today, even today, people would compare Desmond Bryant to Terrell Owens. I'm comparing Terrell Owens to Deion Sanders because there's a lot of similarities with these players. Remember, Terrell loves his stats. Deion Sanders loves his stats. But by the end of the day, Deion Sanders went to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 championships and almost made history in baseball and almost won a World Series in baseball. He lost, but then he also played against... But then there was something else that happened to Deion. Deion eventually was accepted by the NFL, ultimately. And people are just now starting to accept Terrell Owens. They'll never forget the antics that he done in his NFL career. And you see the video game of him on the front cover. And let's not forget his controversial antics when he made fun of Baltimore Ravens Ray Lewis after beating him in a game to get to the playoffs. Let's not forget that controversial moment in NFL history. So who's better? I'm going to say by a split hair, by a slight split hair, I give it to Deion Primetime Sanders. Now, I know some Terrell Owens fans might get red in the face and said bullshit, but that's my conclusion to this video. And maybe later in the week, I make another video about New Orleans Saints and another football team and why that team ain't won a Super Bowl in a while. Until next time, peace.